About 7 years ago, Cadillac introduced the ATS. It was designed to be the company's compact sports sedan to go head-to-head with the BMW 3 Series, a Mercedes-Benz C-Class, and an Audi A4. Now, over the years, the ATS definitely was starting to get a little bit old, so what I'm standing by today is that vehicle's replacement. This is the 2020 Cadillac CT4, more specifically, the Cadillac CT4-V, which on paper should replace the old ATS-V, which had a fire-breathing twin-turbo V6 with around 464 horsepower. Now, as you can see, the new CT4 is definitely a very good looking car, but the big question I want to answer, if you guys are looking for a compact entry-level sports sedan, is Cadillac's new CT4 still worth a look? That's over here to find out. Now, when you see a Cadillac with the V badge, you know that this is going to be their high performance model. Now, unfortunately, Cadillac has been diluting the V series of vehicles in the last few years, and this CT4V does not have a twin turbo V6 that the old ATS-V had. Instead, we have the 2.7 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, which is actually the same engine that I tested in the regular CT4 Premium Luxury. This engine actually traces its roots back to a Chevrolet Silverado, and in this application, it makes a little bit more power, 325 horsepower, about 15 more horsepower than the non-V version of this car, and 380 pound-feet of torque. That torque number is about 30 more versus the non-V version of this car, and it makes it one of the most powerful offerings in the segment. Remember, Cadillac has repositioned the CT4 to compete with cars like the Mercedes-Benz CLA, the BMW 2 Series Gran Coupe, and an Audi A3. Now, it all goes out through either the rear wheels, like my tester, through a mechanical limited slip differential, or you can also get all-wheel drive for about $1,500 extra. And the big news, with, of course, with this powertrain is it now has a 10-speed automatic transmission, which is a GM design transmission, and fuel economy is pretty decent. It's rated at 20 in the city, 29 on the highway. Now, as this one sits, it weighs around 3,600 pounds, so it's a little bit heavier than some of its competitors. And Cadillac says you'll get to 60 in around 4.6 seconds, which should match the performance that you get in the CLA 35 and a BMW M235i Gran Coupe. Now, closing the hood and looking at the rest of the styling of the CT4V, you can see, just like the CT4 Premium Luxury that I showed you, this has the latest design language that we've seen on some Cadillac models. In fact, I actually think that the CT5 looks better, but in the V series configuration, you can see the CT4 adds its own unique black mesh finish grille. You've got the company's signature full LED headlights with the LED daytime running light that it kind of expands from the top of the fender going down to the lower front fascia. You have a dual LED, so LED low and high beams. However, my tester is missing for $400 LED turn signals, which would also make the headlights look a little bit more fancy. It looks good in this gray exterior color with the black accents, although I will say that the old ATS-V looks far more aggressive. Keep in mind, there is a CT4 Blackwing that is coming, which should be the actual replacement for the ATS-4 or the ATS-V, which this car in general is designed to, again, be kind of like the middle offering. Previously, V model Cadillacs were a little bit too crazy. This is supposed to be a little bit more approachable. Now, looking at the side profile, you can see, unlike its competitors, the CT4 is significantly bigger than most of its rivals. It stretches at 187 inches long, which is about 10 inches longer than some of its competitors, and its wheelbase also is a little bit longer. This is riding on the same wheelbase as the Cadillac ATS, the previous generation, and this is again still riding on the Alpha platform, which also underpins the Chevrolet Camaro. Now, in terms of wheels, the V models come with 18-inch wheels as standard. My tester again has those 18-inch wheels. They're wrapped in 235s in the front. A little bit wider tires in the back. You can also spec in a 19-inch wheel if you'd like, and if you also want to paint those calipers for $400, Cadillac will let you paint it blue or red, which I highly would recommend. It would make this car stand out a lot more. Now, my tester is also missing a sunroof option, which would have been nice. The car's profile on the side looks a little bit plain for me. In fact, I think that the wheels look a little bit too small for the rest of the body, so I would suggest going for the 19-inch wheel option. And then looking at the rear, this is probably my least favorite angle of the CT4V. In general, I don't like the way this rear trunk lid area looks with the full LED taillights. Underneath here, you can see it's got its own unique exhaust system for the V models. It's got a quad look, although these are kind of just exhaust trim pieces. You guys are probably curious, so let me fire up that engine and hear how it sounds real quick. All right, so now we have a turbocharged 4-cylinder. Let's hear how this thing sounds. So I do hear a little bit of a turbo whistle noise. It's a beefy 4-cylinder, but this isn't going to replace a 6-cylinder engine.
Held that red tank on itself. That wasn't my foot. Supposed to. But it didn't the second time I revved it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was kind of weird.
Emissions, that's probably what I'm thinking. It doesn't sound good. And again, this is a 4-cylinder, which most of the competitors don't sound all that great unless you go to a CLA 45, which is considerably more expensive. Now, opening up the trunk area, you can see the cargo capacity is actually only around 10.7 cubic feet, which is pretty small. In the real world, however, the trunk looks pretty large. It has a pretty good opening, and you have hinges here that don't crush your cargo, but this kind of takes up a little bit of space. The seats also fold down in a 60/40 manner. So moving on to the interior of the 2020 CT4-V, you can see just like the regular CT4 that I had a couple months ago, the V has a few differences to make this thing feel a little bit more special versus the non-V trim levels of this car. And if you guys have been inside some other modern Cadillacs, you'll know that the interior is pretty simple in its design. It has some average to decent quality materials. You have the Cadillac user experience interface here. It's an 8-inch touchscreen. It does include Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. The steering wheel is slightly fatter on the V model, which is good. You have these magnesium paddle shifters, which is nice. No flat bottom. There's this little V badge here to put it into the V specific drive mode. And then these seats, you can see I really like the orange contrasting stitching and piping. The seats themselves are heated and cooled, which is nice. They do have a slightly more aggressive bolstering. You also have a thigh extender over here that extends to the passenger and for the driver's side as well, which is nice. When I shut the door, it has a relatively solid sounding thunk, which is pretty much the same as the last CT4 that I drove. And you can see here's the key fob for the vehicle. It hasn't changed. This is the newer current Cadillac key fob. It does have remote start. The button to start the engine is over here. Now, I actually already tested this engine in the regular CT4. Of course, that engine had slightly less horsepower. This has about 15 more horsepower. And just like the regular CT4, I'm pretty disappointed with the noise that this engine makes, but we'll talk about that later on in the driving portion. Technically, most of the entries in this, subcompact premium sedan segment have 4-cylinder turbos, and they don't sound particularly nice as well. Now, looking at the rest of this cabin, you can see soft touch injection molded plastic here with a faux stitching, which is nice. You have 2-person memory, which I really like to see. There's a metal door handle here. The Bose premium sound system sounds good, although it's pretty bass heavy. I much prefer the Burmester sound system in like a CLA 45 or 35, for example. Window controls, 1-touch automatic for both front windows. The rear is 1-touch down, but not 1-touch up. I kind of think Cadillac should just made it for both. Down here, it's hard touch plastic, which is to be expected in this segment. The steering wheel, you can see, is a manual tilt and telescoping steering wheel with a good amount of adjustability. There's also a heated wheel. You have a lot of buttons here to control, your various sources in the instrument panel, and of course your infotainment system. Cadillac is adding a fully digital display here and Super Cruise for 2021. This 2020 model, as you guys know, doesn't have those features, and it looks a little bit Chevy-like when you look at it from the instrument panel here. So I'm glad to see Cadillac is listening and they're updating that for the 2021 model year. The rest of this dashboard, you can see there's a soft touch injection molded plastic, although it's a faux stitching. Some metal look trim, some piano black plastic, although this doesn't show fingerprints as much as the older materials that Cadillac used to use. The buttons here are these metal buttons down here, and then you can see you've got heated and cooled seats, which is nice. Your lane keep assist is over there. This right here, you can see there's your Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. The CarPlay is not wireless, although I do believe it's coming for 2021. The screen, you can see it's bright, it's crystal clear, it's a touch screen, it's easy to use, although the screen itself is starting to look a little bit small. I'm surprised that Cadillac didn't want to use a bigger, like 10.25-inch display or a 12-inch display like some of its competitors do. It does include a factory embedded GPS, which is the newer system that I've shown you on Cadillacs before. It works perfectly fine. It's pretty quick and responsive. The graphics don't look particularly special, but it gets the job done. I imagine most people will just use the CarPlay anyways, or the Android Auto. When you put the vehicle into reverse, there's a backup camera with trajectory, with parking sensors, which is nice. No top-down camera. You don't really need it for a car that's this small. Down here you can see there's a wireless phone charging pad, which is good. This controls the 8-speed automatic transmission. You push this little button here to put it into reverse. Whenever you're shifting gears, push it again, kick it all the way back to drive, and then kick it back again to go to manual mode, and then push the P to go to park. There's some real aluminum trim here, which looks and feels nice. Your drive mode selector is over here. You can see Cadillac offers a sport, a my mode, a track, tour, snow, and ice. And then of course there's the V mode, Whenever you push that button, it goes into a dedicated V mode. The launch control is in that performance traction management. If you guys don't want to use the touchscreen, you can use this little rotary dial here, which I imagine most of you will just end up using the touchscreen anyways. It's within easy reach. It doesn't make sense to have this. Although Cadillac is nice for giving you both options. There's a padded armrest here and then a pretty good amount of center console storage. My Tester is missing the sunroof option, which would be nice to have. It's a little bit dark in here. This dark cabin with the dark gray isn't my particular choice. Opening up the glove compartment, you can see it's big, it's damped, and it's lined with felt. And the interior space in here feels pretty good. It feels a little bit more spacious than the last CLA that I rode in. But there's something about this interior that doesn't feel quite as special. It's a little dark. It's missing, some of the tech features, some ambient interior lighting that would make it feel more special. So Cadillac hopefully will be addressing that for 2021. Now, because this is Cadillac's entry-level model, when you get into the back seat, you're going to notice right away that it is pretty tight back here. In fact, Cadillac says you get around 33.5 inches of legroom. That's actually 2 inches less than what you get in something like the current generation Audi A3 and S3, which is about time due for replacement. You can see at 5'7", it's actually not that bad in the real world for me. I mean, my head isn't touching, but I'm not very tall. In terms of the space, there's pretty good foot space underneath here. There's a very large hump to remind you this is a rear drive car for the middle passengers, so don't even anticipate putting somebody in the middle seat unless you don't like them. You do have rear seat vents. You have a little power outlet over here, and then if you fold down this armrest, you can see there are cup holders. But it is missing features like if you wanted USB ports, there's no heated rear seats, but at least the materials are soft touch plastic, and you also get 2 rear seat map pockets. All right, so the last CT4 that I drove, as I mentioned it before, was the non-V version, which had this powertrain, but Cadillac V-Series models have always been a little bonkers. They've always been a little crazy. Cadillac is trying to change that with these new lighter V-Series versions with a Blackwing coming later on. So this single turbo 2.7 liter 4-cylinder engine, which comes out of a Chevrolet Silverado, basically just has the wick turned up on the boost to give this thing 325 horsepower, 380 pound-feet of torque. That makes it more powerful, of course, than a CLA 35, an M235i, and an Audi S3. That's what Cadillac wants you to compare this car to. And right off the bat, I'm noticing, just like the regular CT4, the driving feel of this car is excellent. It's a rear drive chassis, which is different from all the other front drive platform vehicles. It feels very stiff, it feels very solid, it feels like a sporty car because this is a rear drive Alpha platform, the same platform that underpins the Camaro. The powertrain, however, the noise is not what you expect it to be, especially if you guys have driven an ATS-V. You cannot compare this to an ATS-V because the CT4 Blackwing is the one that you want to compare that to an ATS-V. This is designed to be kind of that middle ground. It makes a nice little pop when it upshifts, which is good. I did not experience that in the non-V model. I'm also noticing the exhaust is a little bit louder in this car. It sounds pretty good, actually, when you have it on full boil and you hear the popping noise from the exhaust, because when the engine is when you kind of catch the engine just sleeping and then you're flooring it, it can sound like a droney 4-cylinder at times. It's a big displacement 4-cylinder. It also redlines at a pretty low 6,000 RPM because of that very big, large displacement. Now this one here is a rear drive model, which means the back end can get a little skittish at times, but it puts the power down really well, which is how I expect this Alpha platform to always perform. It's a really planted, secure, just confidence-inspiring sports sedan, which you're not going to feel in its front drive competitors for sure. Now, because this is a full V-Series version, it does come with the company's launch control system. I have it in its performance traction management. You saw there's several different modes you can put this in. It activates in any of the modes. Basically, once you have it in this mode, when you come to a full stop, the steering wheel needs to be pointing straight ahead. All you have to do is floor the brake and the accelerator, let the revs build up, and then let go of the brake. Remember, this is a rear drive model, so the back end will still get a little bit feisty when you get hard on the throttle. But you know what? It puts the power down really well. It's still very fun to drive and comical. And Cadillac says this should get to 60 in around 4.6 seconds, which is pretty quick. It matches the performance of the last CLA 35 that I drove, and it also feels like it handles better. The noise, again, it has a little pop from the exhaust, which is nice. The transmission is the 8-speed automatic, which is a pretty decent transmission. It's, you know, a GM design transmission. It's not obviously as quick as the dual clutches that you get in its competitors. And then when I pull the paddles here, you can see it's a little slow to respond. I like the noise though. The noise is really good. So I like the popping noises this thing makes. The visibility is also decent in this car. And when you kind of have it in its regular comfort mode, the Cadillac does get quiet again. It rides really nice. This one here also has the magno-rheological dampers, which you get on the rear drive model, which is good. It's a very pleasant driving car. There's just something about the CT4-V even, where the rest of the car, to me, feels a little bit like a letdown. Maybe it's because of the non-fully digital display. Maybe it's because of the lack of ambient interior lighting. Maybe it's this dark color. It's just something about it doesn't feel quite as special feeling as a lot of its competitors. But that's going to come down to a personal preference, taste factor. This is a really nice driving sports sedan. And if you want something rear drive, this is the only game in town. Because this is rear-wheel drive, you can get the tail to step out, which good luck trying to do that in its front-wheel drive competitors. I must admit, I didn't like the regular CT4, but the V-Series model is not bad. You just have to realign your expectations with the other 4-cylinder competitors. Don't compare this to an ATS-V of the previous generation. Save that for the Blackwing. But this is a wonderfully driving car. It handles well. The steering is so incredibly sharp. The chassis just makes you laugh because of how planted it is and how secure it feels. It could easily handle another 100 more horsepower. So yes, the CT4-V, for the price that they're asking, you know, if you can kind of get past the fact that the interior doesn't feel quite as special, the look of the car is a little bit on the conservative end. I much prefer the bigger brother, the CT5-V, in the looks department versus this one. But you can't argue with the performance, the price, and if you want all-wheel drive, Cadillac still offers all-wheel drive. Now, fuel economy is rated at 20 in the city, 29 on the highway. I've been averaging around 21 mpg in my mixed driving in the week that I had this car. It's not bad mpg. You can push this up to close to 30 if you guys are, you know, driving it economically, which you can do because the 4-cylinder, you don't always have to drive it, you know, super aggressively. Like I can, for example, put it back into its touring mode here. The dampers get even softer, the engine gets quieter, and it's a pleasant driving luxury sedan that is definitely a unique feeling option in a segment full of much smaller and more nose-heavy competitors. So if you guys continue to think of the CT4-V as an ATS-V replacement, you're going to be pretty disappointed. However, Cadillac never offered a V-Lite version of the ATS, and this is what that model essentially kind of fills in terms of a gap. As you guys saw, it has pretty good performance, 0 to 60 in around 4.5 seconds. Its rear drive chassis gives you those taillight shenanigans that you're not going to get in a lot of its competitors, and you can also get all-wheel drive if you'd like. And because this car is significantly larger on the outside, it does have more of a presence to it. So if you like the styling of the CT4 over its competitors because it's a bigger vehicle, this is one that should be basically at the top of your list, but just know that it is bigger on the outside, but you don't necessarily get more interior space. Now that brings me to one of the issues that I have with this car is the pricing. It does start at a pretty good deal, $32,995, so around $33,000. This CT4-V starts at around $45,000, which is fairly reasonable at the base end. Now, of course, my tester here has several options on it, from the upgraded sound system to the upgraded leather to the upgraded paint color in the wheels. It's still missing a sunroof, and it also is still missing some options that what competitors offer, but this one here stickers for around $52,000, which $52,000 is a pretty good chunk of change. I would happily pay the $45,000 for this car, but when you look at some of its competitors, they are more expensive versus like the Mercedes-Benz CLA, but I'd argue that the Mercedes feels slightly more special. There's something about this car which GM will be addressing for 2021 in the interior tech department and just kind of the warmth feeling of the cabin. It feels like it's missing a few things, but really at around $52,000, it is for me a little bit too expensive. But keep in mind, if you guys are looking for an entry-level sports sedan, you're not supposed to compare this to like a 3 Series. It does offer the rear drive handling dynamics that some enthusiasts are looking for, but just know that there is a refreshed model coming for 2021, so I may just wait for that model. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2021 Cadillac CT4-V. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.